So as an entrepreneur, what is one habit that you would recommend to other entrepreneurs that are just starting out?
Number one is, I'd say, be obsessed with. Be obsessed with improving yourself.
Yes.
And that means that reading things of people that have done the things you want to do.
Yes.
Talking to people who have done the things that you want to do. And that doesn't mean just one person. There's all these different areas of your life. You have your spiritual life. You have your relationships. You have yourself.
Right.
You know, we can't deny the fact that if I want my marriage to be better, I can't ignore that Rob the person needs to improve himself and develop himself so that I can be who I need to be for my wife and for my kids and for my finances and so on. And so looking for these people that in my world, because you're going to be a product of the people around you that you surround yourself, both the thoughts, both the actions.
Right.
If you look at your world and you say, hey, I'd like improvement in my relationships. And I'd say, great. And it's specifically which ones? And you said, I want to be a better husband. I go, that's fantastic. That's step one. That's awareness, right? Well, awareness that you want to be a better husband, you want to improve, you want to live the biggest, best relationship you can ever have with your wife. And I'd say, who are the most amazing husbands that you know and spend time with? And out of the 5 people that you're hanging out with, and you're like, yo, I'm probably the best husband. Like, that's a problem. So I guess to answer your question is upgrade your circles.
Got it.
Surround yourself with people and be obsessed with that conditioning that you have, that every day is about becoming better than I was the day before, whether that's being a father, being a husband, being a spiritual leader, follower, or business finance. Gotcha. Find the people that can help you.
I love it.
Develop that skill. And sometimes you're not going to know them personally, so you're reading their autobiography. That's okay. Anthony Robbins and Steve Jobs are mentors of mine, and I've never.
Yeah, you're watching their you're listening to their podcast. You're watching their videos. When you're talking about being obsessed, I love that book, Be Obsessed or Be Average by Grant Cardone. It's an amazing book. Yeah, if you want to master something, you have to be obsessed with it. Yeah. So I really love that. And then there's faith, family, fitness, there's all these different aspects of your life that you have to surround yourself with a mentor. And I've been learning that as well. Like, they don't even have to know that you're their mentor, or you know what I mean? Like, you can just find someone and
be observing them,
adopt them as your mentor, I guess,
Absolutely.
And I've been learning that, and I love that a lot.
What I found though is that the more successful someone is in an area of their life, by the way, it's not the least likely they are to help you. It's the more likely they are to help you.
That's true.
I've watched guys like Gary Vaynerchuk do podcasts for guys that have like 1,000 followers, and yet it wouldn't pencil, ever for it to be a good idea. And yet that's what he's committed to doing because he remembers being that guy. Anthony Robbins is the type of guy who probably gets stopped on the side of the street all the time and is impacting people's lives. So there's people in our lives that do that. The one last thing that I would add to that is, now that that would be the first thing, is surround yourself with people that are emulating where you want to be in those different spaces in your life. The second thing would be taking action around those things, and taking action even when you don't want to do the things, before you're in the mood, is critical. So many people are in a ready, aim status of their life. I call them professional practicers. They've read all the books. They've gone to all the classes. They could teach the classes, and it's all theoretical. So to really know something is to have done it.
Live it.
To have done it. So you don't know. You can read all the books you want about swimming, but until you've jumped in a pool or a lake and actually applied it, you really don't know how to swim.
But most likely, like you were saying, if you're hanging around a bunch of swimmers, sooner or later you're going to end up in the pool. You know what I mean? It's just going to happen. If you're hanging around a bunch of millionaires, what's going to happen? They're going to bring you in the pool. They're going to get you swimming. Tell us a time in your life where you may have failed, and how did you recover, or did you recover? Maybe you didn't recover, and what did you learn?
So there's failures I've recovered from and learned from, and there's failures that I continue to repeat and haven't quite gotten it yet, and that's a work in progress.
Yes.
So what I would add to what you said is I agree with you, and what I would add is that there's these times in our life called significant emotional experiences, anchor moments. We all remember where we were on 9/11. The day that we got the news and we turned on the TV and we saw that something had crashed into the towers. It was a significant emotional experience. If you've ever had kids, you remember the day you had that kid. You remember what you were doing. You might remember also good things like having a kid versus 9/11. So when you say we learn from failures, I'd say yes, that's true. And what I think is really important to have awareness around is we get anchored by significant emotional experiences, and we learn from those moments that transform our lives. Life will never be the same after this day. Right. So you can also condition yourselves to learn from the good things, to reward yourself, but most people are going to divert the pain more than they will chase the pleasure. So I think when we talk about failing, I've certainly learned more from my failures than I have from my successes. Because to me, my most significant emotional experiences come from hurt, come from fear, come from the pain of those things, instead of necessarily anchoring like the idea of a great memory or whatever. So I can think of a few. One that specifically a failure that I took a stand on that anchored, and I was like, okay, never again, was a time in my life where it was the last time I was ever broke. The last time. And I've made a couple bucks and lost a couple bucks, and I can't tell you how many times I've been broke. It's been way too many to count. But I know specifically when the last time was that I didn't have any money in the bank, that I was overdrafted. And it was a time where I was out of money, and I asked someone to borrow money that I would have never wanted to ask to borrow money, and it was like spending money. Like, hey, I went to this person, I'm like, I really hate to ask this, and just really in a tight spot. Is there any way I can just borrow like $40, $100, just, something to get me by? And it took everything I had to even ask this person. And they looked at me and they were like, no. And I instantly just had this understanding that what that meant was like, yeah, I don't trust, nah, I'm good. And I went, okay, hey, that's cool. I'll figure it out, no problem. The very next day, I borrowed a friend of mine's carpet cleaning machine and went door to door cleaning carpets. And I was cleaning 3,000 square foot houses with a borrowed carpet cleaner for like $50. And I mean, I was knocking on people's door, and these people that were home were like, we don't need our carpets cleaned, but if you're going to clean 3,000 square foot house for $50, like, come on in. Like, it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it was one of the most embarrassing, painful things that ever happened. I heard of that story. The genesis of the carpet cleaning business was I was dead broke, and the only person I knew in my life that might have a couple extra dollars to lend me money was someone that I went to and said no, and it embarrassed and hurt me so bad, I was like, never again.
That's how I am. I've learned to feel pain in without being at the bottom. I learned to feel that pain, like, gosh, I don't ever want to feel this again.
I create hypothetical pain. I create these scenarios where I'll go into, I'll live in, and I'll feel what it would be like for my daughter just graduated from high school yesterday. 17 years old. Graduates from high school, and I'll live in scenarios like she does her part. She graduates from school. She gets good grades. Maybe she gets accepted into like this amazing law school or whatever that is. And I'll create this scenario where she created this amazing life that I would just be immensely proud of and excited for her. And she comes to me and says, Dad, Harvard Law School accepted me. And I can't believe the dream is real. I get to go to Harvard Law School, and it's $50,000 a semester. And, will you help me with room and board? Will you help me with this? And I'll create this scenario of like I don't have it to give. And so I create this hypothetical pain so that, because money's not everything. It's certainly not in our life. However, it's good for the good that it does. And, and it creates this energy. It's like I use the illustration of like it's like a master key. I want to walk through this door, and it's like a master key. It unlocks doors. So it gets me to the other side. So I will tell myself, it's like, well, if that's $200,000 that I'm going to need to make sure that I'm never the reason why my daughter doesn't get to live a big life.
I love that.
I'm not going to wait. Some people will be like, oh, who would expect you to give that to her? But yet we have an economic crisis right now with student debt, people going into hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, and they say that's the next big, imbalance that's going to create maybe what the mortgage, industry did to our economy before. Student debt. And, so it's not that I want to just give it away and not create something cool for my daughter, but just even having the ability to lend it to her. I told my daughter recently, though, because she's going into college, and we were shopping schools. And about 6 months ago, I was letting my pride get in the way, and I was saying, I'm going to pick up the tab, and I had a very fierce conversation with her. I said, listen, I'm going to do you the greatest favor ever, and that is that you're going to pay for your own way through school. And even if I had the ability or not, that's not the conversation. I want you to learn something. I want you to have skin in the game. And you're not, and I'm not going to let you do it in a way that puts you in massive debt. And so she actually changed which school she wanted to go to based on what even those financial consequences might be. And it was based on the thought process. I heard a quote from Jackie Chan, believe it or not, the movie star. And Jackie Chan in this interview had said that, I think he's worth something, $60 million, whatever it is. He's made a ton of money. And he said he's got a son. He said, when I die, all of my money is going to charity. My son doesn't get anything. No financial. And the interviewer said, well, why is that? And he said, well, if I've taught my son well, if I've prepared him correctly, then he doesn't need my money. And if I haven't prepared him well, if I haven't gotten him ready for life, then all he'll do with my money is bad things. Either way, it's not going to him. He's going to give it to charity. And I was like, I heard that quote and was reminded of it about 6 months ago. And I thought, what, the greatest thing I can do for my daughter is make sure she's prepared for life.
Prepared themselves.
Not just granted some
just
ticket.
Given, yes.
So, to use the grades analogy, if your daughter was to go into a class and get an A in that class because that subject came easy to her, is that going to be as powerful for her life as a subject that came with a lot of difficulty and she committed to the process of understanding it and maybe even came up short, maybe got a B, but had committed to getting her D to a B and really struggled with it, and it's you'd be more proud of that B than you might even be of the A.
Exactly.
I had friends in high school that were fluent in Spanish and they're taking Spanish. Why? Because it's an easy A. So are you proud of that A when your kid comes home with an A and you're already fluent in Spanish? It's like, come on, man, that was the easy way out.
Are you up at night getting better at this? Are you uncomfortable trying to learn this? Does it bother you that you have to study this, but you're studying it anyway? That's what I tell my kids. I tell them, like, hey, look, if you're uncomfortable, you're growing. If you're uncomfortable, you're learning. If you're comfortable, that just means you know it already. If you're real comfortable. So go do something you don't know and be uncomfortable, because that's the best spot to be in. So if you had to start again, with your story, it's funny. I don't know what you're going to come up with, but if you had to start again, what would you do?
What would I do differently? Who I am today is not even close to the person that I envision myself being. This is just, part of the process, and I hope we can do this interview again even a year or 5 years from now to show the evidence of who it is that I'm becoming.
Exactly.
So I by no means think that I've somehow arrived. Just because I might be ahead of a few, there's plenty that are out there that are doing it at a higher level that had less resources. So what I would do differently if I was back to 20 years old, is number one is I would relax a little bit more, and I was so afraid of failure that I lived with a knot in my chest too often. If I could call that 20-year-old Rob and have a conversation with him, I'd say, keep up what you're doing, stay on the path. In fact, do more of it, read more books, go to more events, hang out with more, people that are excelling, do all these things even more, and understand that this is crock pot, not microwave. Understand that you are on the right path, and as long as you're committed to that progression, you're going to be okay.
It always tastes better out of the crock pot.
It's going to be okay. There was so many years of just living in fear of the failure instead of understanding that life or accomplishments or success, are about the process, not necessarily the destination always. I equate it to like a nature walk. If you end up in Hawaii and you pay money to go on a nature walk, you don't just realize that the exit is 10 feet away and just walk to the exit and get back in your car. You actually go on the nature walk so that through that process you're absorbing the beautiful waterfalls and all that. And life can be that way. So I would tell that younger version is enjoy the process. It's going to be hard. I'm not saying, take it easy and party. I'm saying embrace the hard stuff, embrace that, make it fun and enjoy it. A little bit more.
I love that.
It took me a while to probably learn that it's enjoyable doing the hard things.
During the process. My father-in-law always says, life is in the journey, not the destination. Well, that pretty much ties us up. Is there anything else that you would like to end with, or advice that you would give anyone, even myself? Because I'm always ears when you have something to say.
Think bigger. Anything it is that we're looking to accomplish in our life, the the areas that we're looking to grow, whether it's with your kids, whether it's with your wife, whether it's your relationship with God, how much money you think you deserve to have in the bank, how many properties you think you deserve to own, or how much money you think you can earn. Understand that it's all just a concept, and your life can be as big as you can create it within your mind, and you speak it into existence.
Right.
And those things, those trips, that life is not what defines you. However, you know, God wants us to have these relationships. God wants us to have, that's ultimately what he wants from us. He wants us to have a relationship with him. He wants us to have relationships with each other. He wants us to have relationships with our family members. And he wants us to love him and love people. And along the line, we're also living in this world of things and places and stuff. So if I can go to some really cool places with some really cool stuff and love people and love God and all that in the process, and that's what I would encourage you to do. And that's all within our capability. If we just create that for ourselves.
Got it.
That's about it.
Thank you so much for taking the time out of your productive schedule. We really appreciate having Rob Talbot here. Father, businessman, entrepreneur. Open this, open that. Blow it up big. Big dreams, big goals. It has been a pleasure, and I'm probably going to watch this video at least 10 times. So I'll know inside and out. And I would love to do it again in 2 or 3 years and just see how things have changed. So thanks again for being here. Rob Talbot, everyone. Have a great day.